Welcome to Up Close and Personal, a series of shows focusing on Taylor's leaders. We hope this format helps you understand them a little bit better. After all, they are fathers and mothers, sons and daughters in Taylor. While they may hold positions of power, they are also your neighbors. I'm your host, Carl Zymak, and today's guest is Angie Winton. Angie has served as a member of City Council since February 2019, when she was first appointed due to a vacancy. She was elected to a new four-year term in November 2021. Angie is one of 7 council members on the City Council, the legislative branch of municipal government. The 7-member board is elected at large and serves 4-year terms, running bi-monthly meetings the first and third Tuesdays of the month. All the meetings are open to the public. Welcome to the show, Angie.
Thank you for having me, Carl.
You feel comfortable on here?
I feel slightly comfortable.
Slightly comfortable. I hear you. I hear you. You hear it. I hear you. I hear you very, very firmly. Let's start right off the top here. I always thought of City Council as a full-time job masquerading as a part-time position. How do you view your own role in city government?
Yeah, I definitely would say the time commitment is immense, especially during times of budget. I think, speaking of budget, that's one of, I think, council's biggest role is spending taxpayer dollars wisely, making decisions in the interest of taxpayers and their funds, of which we are one, right? All of us elected officials, hope people remember that the decisions we're making affect us as well. And then really just serving the community. I've always been a big believer in giving back and serving the community, and that's why I wanted to do this role.
When you're an elected official, it seems like you never get away. You know, you're a council person 24/7, just like the mayor is or the clerk is. Even if you're at the grocery store line, you're still the council person.
For sure.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Back in 2019, when Alex Garza was elected to the State House, at the time he was the chair of the council, you were appointed to fill that vacancy that he gave up. How did you apply, and what was the process?
Yeah, I remember the posting coming out online for interested applicants. I had a few friends message me, you should really do this. I had already been thinking about it. Always followed Taylor politics, always had an interest, and had actually planned to run in this last election, which I did run. But this just seemed like a good opportunity to get in. I had served on Recreation Commission since I think 2015, so been a part of the city for a while. It just seemed natural to apply, and was very happy to be selected because there was a lot of great candidates, I think, that applied for the vacancy. So I am very appreciative of those who supported me in putting me into this position.
Was it tough to get adjusted at first?
It was.
You kind of jumped in, you know, it wasn't like you did that long campaign, then got the job. It was like, okay, next meeting, you're up.
For sure. I think that actually the night I was appointed, I went up and with my Tim Hortons coffee, I sat up there. I had been going to all the study sessions though and all the meetings prior, so I was already well versed in what was going on. But yeah, it's a lot to learn.
Oh, yeah.
I'm still learning. I mean, with the different funds and different, there's a lot.
There's a lot there.
Definitely a lot to learn.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
In your day job, you're the head of Human Resources at the Senior Alliance. Can you tell us what that job entails?
Yes. Yeah, so I handle all areas HR, employee engagement, hiring, training, development, payroll. I actually also have facility management and some special programs like Holiday Meals on Wheels and a program called Project Fresh. So we do a lot of the volunteer management as well. I love my job. We have a big focus on our employees. We've won 8 different employer awards over the last 3 years, which I'm very proud of. We run things like fund committees and service committees, so we're a big believer in, again, giving back to the community, so we engage our employees to do that. In fact, right now we just took on a Meals on Wheels route that we're rolling out to have our staff volunteer on a regular Meals on Wheels route twice a week.
That type of morale building that I've heard from not only you, but from different Senior Alliance employees, I know that stuff really does work, okay, because you spend more time at work than you do anywhere.
Yes.
You know, was that something that you and HR promoted, or was that just something that was handed down over the years, or how do you view that?
From our top-down management team, all of us are big believers in community and serving, and we're a nonprofit as well, so we do that naturally. But just kind of adding and listening to our employees. We serve older adults, but our employees also love animals and other causes, and so when we look at community projects, we try to touch on things that are important to our staff. And I mean, our engagement scores are in the 90 percentiles. We have really high retention rates, and it's because we value our staff and we show that.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
Before this Senior Alliance, you worked for Westside Distributors for almost a decade. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yes. Shifted gears from a beer distributor to a nonprofit. Yes, great 10 years. They're right in Romulus, serving almost the same kind of territory that we serve in my nonprofit at work. But it was great. I mean, it was a Budweiser distributor, and so you can't really complain about kind of working in that environment, I guess, especially when you're in your probably 20s, 20s, early.
Oh, a dangerous time.
Yeah, 20s, early 30s.
I hear you.
Yes.
You come off as a very good listener. Have you always been that way, or did you develop that in human resources and things like that? Because I know those people have to be good listeners.
Yes. Yeah, I think active listening is a skill that you learn. I don't think it was necessarily all natural. I think you have to work at it. We all like to talk. We all want to hurry up and say our opinion. So it is really a skill to take time and listen. So I think in both HR, and then I know you're going to touch on it, but my nonprofit work, dealing with people in times of crisis, you have to listen.
Right.
That's really what they want. They want someone to be able to listen to them. So I think both in work and then doing nonprofit type work is where I've developed that skill set.
Also comes in handy when you're on council, because I've found just since I cablecast all the meetings, I've watched all the meetings for the last 8 years, and you're one of those people, you don't say a tremendous amount, but you seem to be a very good listener, because when you do say something, it seems rather meaningful.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that really fits me here?
I agree with that. I do try to really listen, and even if it's something that you disagree with someone on, you can listen to their viewpoint, and it helps you at least articulate maybe your stance on it, or it might change your mind.
Right.
There have been times I think people have come up and said something that may have changed my mind on something. So very important to listen to feedback all around. Again, people aren't always going to like your response or like your answer or like your vote, but at least listening to them and listening to their concerns and trying to mitigate those if you can. Yeah,
it's funny because I've noticed that about you, and before that, for 8 years, and Dan Bazura struck me as the same way. He very reserved, a very good listener, okay, but when he said something, it became that much more meaningful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Tell us about Angie growing up. What was your family life like back then when you were young?
When I was young. Still young.
You're still young. What am I saying?
So yeah, I grew up actually right by Taylor Meadows.
Okay.
So I watched Taylor Meadows actually get built. So it was wooded when we grew up. I think I actually have a picture. I'll have to send it to you, but I want to say I was in like second grade, but lived with my parents. My dad worked at Detroit Diesel. My mom was a stay-at-home mom who babysat though out of the house for extra income. And it was nice because I'm the baby of the family. So I have 2 older sisters that lived with us at home, and I have a brother that lives in Virginia. So yes, I was the baby. So I liked when my mom babysat because it gave me younger kind of siblings, I guess. And went to Fisher Elementary, Hoover Junior High School, and Taylor Center class of '96.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, family vacations, we would go to Virginia a lot. Both sides of my mom and dad's family both live in Virginia, so that was kind of where we would go for family vacations.
That's fantastic. How many, when your mother was babysitting, how many did you take in at the time?
How many like kids were there? It would range, I would say, from probably about 4 to 6 different kids.
So you came in handy.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
There were ones that as I got older and she was still that I kind of took on as, I don't know if you'd say, I ended up babysitting them as well when I was a teen, but kind of took on maybe like a bigger sister role, which was nice.
Do you run into anybody that she used to babysit for?
I have, yes.
Okay,
yes,
alrighty.
I have.
Okay. That's got to be a rewarding experience.
Yes, absolutely.
What about college? Tell us about college. Your college
Eastern
experience.
Michigan University.
Okay.
I originally chose that because I was going into education. I was going to be an elementary school teacher. Then I changed my mind to secondary education. And then I worked at Clyde's Carpet, New York Carpet World, for 8 years prior to the beer distributor. And ended up in HR, ended up kind of in HR payroll role and really just enjoyed it. And so I switched to business management and finished my degree at Eastern.
Okay.
Yes.
You would have fit as a teacher, I think. I think you would have fit as a teacher.
Thank you.
Memories growing up when you were in your teens, good and bad.
Teens, good and bad. I didn't do anything bad, of course.
Oh, you quickly said that. That's a danger.
I would say a lot of it surrounded school.
Okay.
When I look at Hoover, I was part of student council. Miss Kira B's Betts was our leader there, and we did a lot of Spirit Week, that kind of stuff. I always loved that. And then when I moved to Taylor Center, Mickey Turchek, which a lot of people know, was our student council advisor there, served in some different class roles, class president or other roles there, and really just, I loved high school. I did not want to leave high school. I loved Taylor Center. For those who are watching who know, we just had a real school spirit there with, again, Spirit Week and homecoming. And I just absolutely loved doing all of that stuff and working on homecoming sets and Spirit Week. Other than that, I just loved hanging out with my friends. I had a really great group of friends that I'm still friends with, and we do an annual girls trip every year. Most of those are, we've adopted a few extras. Yeah. But a lot of them are my high school friends.
Oh, that's cool.
Yes.
That is really, really neat.
Yes.
Now, you mentioned a couple people in school. Who had the greatest influence on you in your life, and why?
That's such a tough question, because there's so many.
Oh, yeah, there is. Yeah.
There's so many. I would say my dad. I think my dad did pass 9 years ago, but he was always very active, go-getter, very caring, very giving, and I think he just taught me not to quit and to just go for whatever I wanted to do, and I could do it. So I would say my dad, but there's a lot of people, I have to say.
Exactly.
Yes.
Tell us about your family now. My
family now, so I'm married. I always forget how long. I'm going to say it'll be 17 years this year. And I have, which I know you'll touch on, we had a daughter, Brooke, that would be 17 in March. Yeah. And then I have 2 daughters, Faith and Skylar, who are 15 and 13. So I live with 2 teenage daughters right now, I know.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Yes.
Mine's, let me tell you something. Mine's in their mid-30s now. It's much better.
Okay. That's good to know, because sometimes I'm afraid to breathe around my house.
It does get better.
Yes. But yes, and my oldest will be doing driver's training this month, so she'll be able to drive soon, which will be really nice.
Okay. All righty. Well,
so I can end chauffeur duty, too, that I do.
What's your husband do?
He works for Roto-Rooter as a supervisor.
Okay. All righty. Okay. You're something of an amusement park buff, okay? Are you a daredevil at heart?
Probably a little bit.
Okay. All right.
But I like things that are still safe, like inspected. Like I'm not.
Oh, then you're no fun.
Well, they're still fun. I do want to skydive.
Oh, you do want to skydive? Okay.
Yes, that's on my list of stuff to do.
Favorite park?
Cedar Point.
Okay. No. Oh, yeah. Boy, I'm sorry I even asked. Favorite ride?
Millennium Force.
Okay. You thought about these questions.
Yeah. I already knew those, though. I already knew those. So Millennium Force, it's a Giga coaster, which is 300 feet. So yeah, that's my favorite one.
Okay. Well, Miss Council Member. Okay. This is where we're going to shift gears.
Okay.
Now, many people who know you well would argue that Angie Winton, the council member or the HR director at the Senior Alliance, pales in comparison to Angie Winton, the president and founder of Metro Detroit Share, a 501c3 nonprofit that helps families who have endured the loss of a baby during pregnancy or infancy. Angie recently gave a speech in front of the Rotary, and we taped the presentation. Sam Rickert went out there and taped it for us. And what comes next is an edited down version. And let's take a look at that program, because that is one of the more fantastic things that I've seen anybody undertake.
You may not know, but 1 in every 4 pregnancies end in loss. So in the United States alone, occurs 750,000 to 1 million times annually in the United States, 26 to 40,000 stillbirth, 2 to 4,000 SIDS cases, and then other losses that are due to prematurity, illness, accidental death. And that's why what I'm going to present today is so important to supporting families who endure those losses. So Metro Detroit Share was born out of our own personal story of love and loss. My favorite phrase to use in doing my group work is every new life, no matter how fragile or brief, forever changes the world. So in October of 2003 was the first time we found out we were pregnant. So started having issues shortly thereafter finding out. And so when I was seeing my OBGYN, they did HCG testing, and those levels were not going up as much as planned or as much as they would like to see, so they scheduled the ultrasound. And actually my best friend Jamie was with me when we went to the ultrasound, and she probably remembers it as vividly as I do. Went to the hospital, waited, sat there for a really long time, and they came in and said, you need to go see your OBGYN. So you knew pretty instantly that something was probably wrong. Jamie, do you remember this? Going in the office, and I felt like I was going to pass out, you know, when he said, well, they didn't find a heartbeat, but don't give up yet, you know, maybe we'll wait and see. And then a short time later, it was early in the morning, I actually started miscarrying at home and called my OBGYN, told me to go to the ER. So I think I called my mom and sister, and I think that they went with me, and went into the ER, was examined by the ER doctor, and he started to walk off, and I said, well, you know, and he goes, oh yeah, you miscarried, and he turned around and walked off. So that was my experience with finding out that I had just lost our first pregnancy. And then a short time later, I was scheduled for a D&C procedure and was sent home. No support, no information on miscarriage loss, and how to best support myself and our family. So after losing a baby, obviously wanted to get pregnant again, so tried, and in July of 2004, pregnancy number 2 was confirmed with a due date of April 1st of 2005. So the first ultrasound was obviously pretty traumatic and scary, and actually they wouldn't let Eric go back for some reason, so I was back there by myself, but they did end up finding a heartbeat, so I was very excited and felt at least a little bit better that this pregnancy maybe was going to end well. Got out of the first trimester, felt much, much better. October 25th of 2004, and you'll see the ultrasound picture at the top, was our first anatomy scan, found out that we were having a girl, and everything looked good, and I finally kind of breathed a sigh of relief that everything was fine. February 9th of 2005, we had another ultrasound, and everything was good. I think I was right around 33 weeks at that point. We had our baby shower February 27th. So after our baby shower, obviously, you know, the room was almost done. We had all of the car seats, strollers, baby clothes, everything ready to go. Friday, March 11th, 2005, Jamie, that's here, we've done Coffee Friday for like, I don't know, probably too many years. So we spend almost every Friday night together. She was at my house, my mom and my sister. And Brooke's picks were very different that night. Much harder, but I didn't, you know, never having been pregnant at that point, I never really thought anything about it. Saturday morning, March 12th, I woke up and didn't feel any movement. So, kind of waited all day, thought I felt a couple of things, and Eric and I bowled on a bowling league. I wasn't bowling at the time, but we went, and my bowling partner said, you're probably getting ready to go into labor. You know, that's pretty normal, they kind of get in a position. So, I thought, okay, that makes sense. Sunday morning, woke up, still didn't feel any movement, so then I started getting a little nervous. Never thinking what really happened would have happened, but I drank some orange juice, still remember it like it was yesterday. I ate a waffle, because they say, you know, something sugary to get the movement going. Still didn't feel anything, so I called my OB. He said to go to the hospital. So I called my mom went with me. And because, again, you don't think at that, I was 37 and a half weeks into my pregnancy, you don't think that your baby died. So my mom went with me, they put us in triage. I had a brand new nurse who came in, her name was Chrissy. She checked for a heartbeat, couldn't find one. She got the nurse Claudia, who is a more experienced nurse. She came in, she tried. Started getting a little nervous nervous at that point, but still did not think of what they were going to tell me. They had the resident physician come in with the ultrasound machine, put me on the bed, they checked, he left the room. I'm still like, this is really weird. And then they brought an ultrasound tech in. So he came in, he checked me, and all I remember is him shaking his head no. And I said, that's not good, is it? And he said no. So that's when we found out that Brooke had passed away. So Eric had not went with me to the hospital because, again, I really did not think that, I thought maybe I was going to go into labor or they were going to keep me. I never really thought that I was going to experience what we were experiencing. So I actually had to call him on the phone and tell him to come to the hospital, which is not an easy message to deliver to the parent or to the father of your baby over the phone. So I asked the hospital, I said, so what do we do now? And they said, you can either go home and come back or we can keep you and you're going to have to be induced. So one part of a reality that I think people don't understand when you lose a baby is the baby has to be delivered. So they started my induction on Sunday, March 13th. I went to the hospital around noon, so probably sometime late afternoon. They started the induction, and so I went all day Sunday, all day Monday, and Brooke was born silently at 2:58 a.m. on Tuesday, March 15th. She weighed 7 pounds, 3 ounces, 21 inches long. My husband Eric was obviously my sister Amy and my dad, and very thankful for all of them to be in there to support, but it's really hard because you of course hope, right, that they're gone. And so the whole time I kept hoping that maybe there was just a really small chance that she would come out crying, but that did not happen. So you deliver a baby that's still, and then you have to make a lot of decisions. And so I was talking to some of my council mates just a few minutes ago, and I was telling them how integral hospital staff was in helping make decisions and why it's so important to educate people, especially hospital staff, at making sure that it's a bad experience, but you only get that one moment to make memories. They were phenomenal. They gave us the binder. That's why I always refer to the binder, and the binder was all of the decisions you needed to make. Do you want to hold your baby? Do you want to dress your baby, bathe your baby? Do you want to take pictures? And then we'll get into making funeral arrangements in a few moments. But they helped navigate that, because my question to them every time when they said, do you want to hold your baby? I said, I don't know, do I? Do you remember this, Jamie? I don't know, do I? Because I didn't know. I mean, it's a very, you don't expect it to happen, so you don't prepare. And I didn't know if it was strange. I didn't know if people, like, are they going to think you're strange if you want to hold your baby? Well, of course you want to hold your baby, because this is the only time that you have to make those memories. So, unfortunately, because Brooke passed what I think was Friday night, and that I didn't have her till early Tuesday morning, the rate of changes in her body happened very rapidly. So we only kept Brooke for, I'm going to say, maybe 2 to 3 hours. But our family was there, our family and friends were there, thankfully. They had stayed there, I think, since we had been there at Sunday. I don't think that they ever left, or it didn't seem like they left. And they were able to see Brooke and hold her and say goodbye. Would have been nice to have more time, and that's one of the programs that we do that we'll get into, just to allow these families more time. So funeral services. So when you have a baby, especially in the state of Michigan, 20 weeks. If you have a baby that's 20 weeks gestation or more, you're legally responsible for either burial, cremation, or donation of baby to science. So that is a decision you have to make. So we decided to do a burial. Until Thursday, March 17th, we had a full day viewing at Scholastic Funeral Home in Lincoln Park. And again, this was our family doing this, somehow making sure that we had lots of memory making. And so we put pictures of our family in the casket. We put, I think my sister and Jamie bought a Mom and Me bracelet, and I wore my mom bracelet forever, but Brooke was buried with the other half. So it was a stay bracelet. She had the baby one. I had the mom bracelet, which I still have. I stopped wearing it because it was going to break, and that would have been devastating. So we buried her with that. My husband read a book to her at the viewing service, and I put, and it's in this picture here, the Kirby bear. So when I was young, I had a Kirby bear. It was an Avon bear, and when I was pregnant with Brooke Kirby, I had 2 of them. was my favorite bear, went everywhere with me. I still have them, and I had bought Brooke a Kirby bear when I was pregnant, and so the Kirby bear is buried with her. And we had the burial on March 18th. So, for Brooke's first birthday, I wanted to do something special to honor her, so decided to do a bowling fundraiser because we were bowlers, so it made sense, and we wanted to donate the money to the hospital program. So we held the first annual bowling for Brooke in March of 2006, and I will tell you, we wanted to do a raffle. And I remember sitting on the couch, I remember a lot of things really vividly from this, but calling places to ask if they would donate for a raffle, and I cried every single time. And I remember one place told me no, and it was the most, at the time it seemed so devastating, because I was like, it just hurt, because I didn't want anyone to forget our child, and I don't hold it against them now, but at the time I kind of did a little bit. But we held our first fundraiser, and the first 2 years that we did it for 10 total years, and it was quite the event, I think. We used to pack 4 lanes, we had the whole bowling alley filled. But the first 2 years we donated the program, or the proceeds to Henry Ford Wyandotte Bereavement Program, and then after was when Cher was born. So this was our very first one, and so this was an article from Henry Ford Wyandotte's internal newsletter. So we donated $4,000 to the Henry Ford Wyandotte Bereavement Program. So I was actually pregnant with Faith there, my 15-year-old now. And then we did it a second year, and we donated $4,600 to the Henry Ford Wyandotte Bereavement Program. This is an article in 2017 as well, related to the fundraiser that was in the News Herald article. Again, so no one will forget, and I'm pretty sure that no one has forgotten now. Here we are 16 years later. Henry Ford Wyandotte, with our proceeds of the second fundraiser, actually put together the special baby book that they handed to families that had lost, and they honored Brooke on the back of it. So you included that in here. So after those first 2 years, Henry Ford Wyandotte had a fairly decent bereavement program. They did some special annual events, but the support was lacking. They did support meetings. We went twice, I think, maybe. So they did 2 support meetings, and wasn't really well attended, and I needed support. I had fantastic family and friends. That was never an issue, but I needed to talk to people who had been through the loss that I had experienced. So after doing some research online, I found the National Share organization and decided to start a chapter of National Share. So in February of 2008, started doing the paperwork, the IRS paperwork, in April of 2008. While I had not even a 2-year-old at home, and I was pregnant with my now youngest child, flew to St. Louis and did training with the National Share organization. February of 2009, we had our first official support meeting at the Taylor VFW, which we still hold our monthly support meetings at. In October of 2009, we held our first Walk of Remembrance and Hope. And so that's my family there in the photos, some kids blowing bubbles to heaven, and then another family. And interesting enough, Ron Collar, that is here, we actually held our walk planning meetings at his real estate office. So his family also experienced the loss 16 years ago. All right, so support meetings. So that's the foundation of our organization. It was the intent of why we started it and why are they important. So this is a testimonial from one of our group members. We attended our first meeting with Metro Detroit Share 5 days after losing our daughter full term. After that, we attended meetings each month, and it honestly saved us from going down a dark and lonely path. Being able to connect with other parents who knew exactly what we were going through was just what we needed. We still attend meetings 6 years later to support ourselves and now others on their journey, and that's Brianna and Evan Carrier. And I remember Evan was actually the one who contacted me to find out about the group loss, and I don't know why, it's always harder to talk to the dads, especially when they get upset, but I still remember the conversation I had with him. I was outside J&S Market on Bush Road. So we do our meetings once a month in Taylor, and we do special meetings for holidays, so Mother's Day, Father's Day, October's pregnancy and infant loss month, and so we'll do a lot of times special crafts, so you'll see one of the photos of where they can make an initial held meetings in Grosse Pointe and West Bloomfield. Always looking to expand, it's just hard to find people to always dedicate the time to run the meetings. We did shift to virtual in March of 2020 because of COVID, obviously, but we just returned to in-person in November of 2021, and we also run an online Facebook support site as well. So one thing that was always important to me, we kept, again, we did the Bowling for Brook fundraiser for 10 years, so we kept accumulating money, and it doesn't cost a lot of money to run a support meeting, right? We always have coffee, which is Tim Hortons, because everybody knows that's my favorite, so we always have that and some snacks, but other than that, it doesn't cost a lot to run a meeting. So we had funding available. When I would go to the cemetery where Brooke was buried at Michigan Memorial, I always hated when I would see a gravesite and no headstone. I don't think it's unfair that a family has to lose a baby, and it's unfair that then if they have that, they don't have the support and the financial means to be able to, you don't want to go to the cemetery and your baby not have a headstone. So our funeral assistance program was born. We provide up to $500 per family for funeral assistance, so we'll fund things towards the burial expense, cremation expense, funeral services, the urns or locket jewelry. So we actually found a site that has infant urns on it or an infant locket jewelry that we're able to order for families that's personalized, and then we'll cover headstone expense. We also coordinate with some other local groups, so a lot of times if we can't help a family, we'll coordinate with them, or if there's special circumstances, which I'll get into one of those, we'll coordinate together. So we have helped to date over 125 families with funeral assistance. And so the Wolak triplets, that was the one that was on the cover page of the slide, that's actually their, they were triplet lost, that was their urn that we ordered for them. The middle picture is actually my husband, my father-in-law, and my dad carrying Brooke's casket at the funeral service. And then another Hunter Tyra is another family that we helped with headstone expense. Baby Sabrina, so I think it was 2018, a mom had reached out and her daughter would be 20 and she still didn't have a headstone, just was never able to financially afford it. And so we actually coordinated with another organization, the Evelyn Grace Foundation, and we covered their headstone in full. We have a lot of programs. Our next program, Curing Cradle donations. We actually have one of the Curing Cradles here, so you can look at it after I'm done. So what's a Curing Cradle and why is it important? So again, our daughter died on Friday night. We had her Tuesday. When anyone passes, right, there's body changes that happen in the body. That's why bodies are sent to the morgue. So the cooling unit does just that. It helps slows down the changes that happen after death. It just allows more time. Again, we only had a couple hours, not enough time, especially if you have family coming in, if you want to do photographs, and honestly just spend time with your baby. So our goal is to place a cooling unit in every Michigan-based hospital. Right now, between our organization and others, it's right around 50%. There's a little pin map there. That's all of the locations that we've actually placed cradles at, though. So we have successfully placed them all in the Lower Peninsula, not in the UP yet, though. 25 to date, and I just ordered a 26th that's going to Greeley. We have one mini cradle that we gave to an organization that travels. It's Sufficient Grace Ministries. And I think, I don't want to say the cool thing about this, but the way that we generate a lot of the money for these, because they're $6,000 a piece, is families that have used the cradles. They're so happy and relieved that they got that time that they end up generating money to purchase cradles. And so what we do is we honor their baby on the plaques. So we have one, Brian Sobosinski. We recently donated a cradle on his twin daughter's 21st birthday, Victoria Rose and Alicia Marie. So that was, they did use a cradle that we donated to Henry Ford Wyandotte in honor of Brooke. So kind of a, I hate to say a cool story because it's a bad story, but it's good that it was there. So these are just some of the pictures from some of the various dedications that we have made. And we have a whole lot that have kind of been put on hold due to COVID, so we'll have many more photos soon. These are just some of them. So in addition to that, we have sponsored training and professional development. So in 2022, we're going to be training a lot of our own group leaders in perinatal bereavement. In May of 2019, we co-sponsored It's Resolved Through Sharing training with Beaumont Royal Oak. So we actually funded part of the actual training fee for them to come here, but then we also funded in full 22 individual scholarships for nurses and social workers to attend, learning perinatal bereavement training, rituals, and memory making. In October of 2018, I actually attended the Pregnancy Loss and Infant Death Alliance biannual conference. All right. Other programs are our Keepsake box and early pregnancy loss bags. So our Keepsake boxes are designed for typically second trimester through infant loss. What's included in there is a variety of support literature, keepsake items, special baby book, teddy bear, blanket. Our history and beginnings. The Memory Box program was actually born out of two different individuals' babies. Jack, which is Emily and Dustin Hughes' son that passed. So Jack Stayed the Giving Project, and Sunshine from Lucas, which was Tiffany Hahn. So they both created, Emily was donating boxes mostly to Hutzel Hospital and Tiffany hospitals in the north. So they were buying boxes, trying to get people to donate bears and Kleenex and all that kind of stuff and donating them. As time passed, their families grew, and it was a little difficult for them to continue those, so Metro Detroit Share took that program over, and now we actually provide these boxes again that Matthew saw. That's pretty much the same hospitals that we provide boxes to. So support literature, very important, and we have support literature that is for father's grief, grandparents' grief, children's grief, lactation after a loss, because that happens, and you have to, there's lots of things you can do. One is some people do milk donation, and that's a way that they can honor their baby, but we put all of that information in so they can make their own decisions. We also have information on other groups. I'm big in coordinating with other groups that provide services we don't. So we include Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep, which is the infant bereavement photography. And so if someone wishes, they can call that organization and have a photographer come in to do, and a lot of those black and white images you see throughout the presentation are actually Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep images. Molly Bear. So Molly Bear is a nonprofit that makes a weighted bear and ships it. I think it's $20 because you cover shipping, but ships it to families. So I have my Brook Bear back there in the cradle. Brook Bear weighs 7 pounds 3 ounces, and she's decked out in pink and purple. Those were my shower colors, and those are my favorite colors. And so they do that. So we include that information so the families can order one if they want. And Face Lodge is a place in Wisconsin that provides people who have lost a child an opportunity to go spend some time away at no cost to them. So to date, we have provided 3,500 boxes direct from Share all throughout Michigan. I'm going to read it from here. I'll read from here because I can read it easier. So testimonial on the Keepsake boxes. So we received a Keepsake box from Metro Detroit Share after our baby was stillborn at 24 weeks. The box included a small teddy bear, a handmade hat and small blanket, some light reading literature, and some additional items that were supportive during this time. We have added our own items to this box over time, so we have all of her things in one special place. There are easier days and there are hard days. The hard days are the days I prefer to take the box out and go through it. The box is just not a box we took home on the day our baby died. It's a box that holds a lot of emotion and will forever be kept as a representation of our daughter and the grief we carry along the way. And that was written by Michelle. And that's one of the photos of our box program, which is no small feat, and some of you have volunteered in here, so you know it's pretty aggressive with getting a whole lot done at one time. So these are some of the contents. I talked about the Mom and Me bracelet and how that was important to me. So similar in thought, we do a 2-part ceramic heart, and so that the larger heart the families can keep. They can use it as an ornament maybe, and then the smaller heart, if the family chooses, can be buried with the baby. Early pregnancy loss bag. So we added these a few years ago. Early loss, not supported. I shared my story where it's like so we felt it very important to support as much as we can early pregnancy loss. So, oh, it says it, 2019 is when we did it. So when I went to the PLIDA conference, I had met, and these people probably thought, why does she keep coming to our table? But it was the Early Pregnancy Loss Association, and they're in Hillsdale. And so we ended up actually partnering with them, and so we include their information in our bags as well. So I think we did one batch without theirs, and then all of those since have included theirs. 1,750 bags to date we have donated to ERs, labor and delivery units, OBGYN offices, and direct-to-families. So we just assembled in August of 2021, 500 boxes, 500 bags. It's a $21,000 project. Walk for Remembrance and Hope. You'll see my blanket back there. That's the first 10 walks that we've done, our walk shirts. We do this at no cost to families. So it's not a walk like Mr. Lehman likes to do, of going out and doing 26K runs or something like that. It is a memorial service. So we do about a 45-minute to an hour-long memorial service of poem reading and song. And just in honor of babies, it's a special day for families to come and honor their child. So our first was in 2009. We had probably just a little over 100 people. We have typically close to 500 that attend the walk every year. It's held at Heritage Park in Taylor. And our next date, just pending to make sure I can get the pavilion, will be Sunday, October 2nd. And that's our logo. We already have that done. And just some pictures from the various walks that we've done. Programs and partnerships. So again, big into coordination. I think you can support more families the broader your network is and the broader the services. So I did approach different organizations sometime a few years ago and finally got everybody together, and we formed the Southeast Michigan Perinatal and Infant Loss Coalition. And so our partner organizations, Evelyn Grace Foundation, Angel Kisses, Riley Catherine Foundation, Ike and Ella Foundation, Tears Foundation of Michigan, Sufficient Grace Ministries, Rebecca's Reasons, and the Early Pregnancy Loss Association. And so we met several times and we just coordinated, so we coordinated on projects, we coordinated on funeral assistance. We could do a lot more together. This is just something kind of neat I threw in here, Rainbow Baby photo shoot. So a rainbow baby is a name coined for a healthy baby born after losing a baby due to miscarriage, infant loss, stillbirth, or neonatal death. The name Rainbow Baby comes from the idea of a rainbow appearing in the sky after a storm or after a dark and turbulent time. The term has gained popularity on blogs and social media. So the ones over, let's see, on the right, those are our first ones. And so my girls are in the green, so they're the oldest rainbow babies in the group. And then we did one a few years later over at the Taylor Conservatory. Not everybody, unfortunately, gets to experience that, but it definitely, I think, is inspirational and gives hope that sometimes there is hope after that. So, how can people help us? So, we do have walk sponsorships available, and I can, if anyone's interested, I can always email this information to you. General donations, again, we do a lot. The cradles, 6,000. We actually have, I think she just sent me an invoice for 4. Yes. So it's a lot. And the box and bags were almost out of what we put together in August. We're down to the very last, which I have going out soon, so we're going to have to do an assembly soon. If anybody's crafty, we include a handmade blanket in all our boxes, 18-inch by 18-inch. Sewn, crocheted, knitted, fleece. We like the light pastel baby print colors. Handmade hats and booties. You can like our Facebook page. You could set up a Facebook fundraiser for Metro Detroit Share, and you can also select our charity on Amazon Smile or Kroger Rewards. This is probably the part where I'm like, I did so good with not crying this whole time. This is probably going to be the one that will get me. All right. So, why is Metro Detroit Share so important? Metro Detroit Share matters to the families who show up to a meeting 2 weeks after their loss or have been holding grief inside for years. It matters to every family who leaves the hospital with a box instead of a baby, to every mother who pushes one last time, desperately hoping the doctor was wrong, that her baby will cry only to be greeted with silence. To every father who makes the phone calls to waiting grandparents to tell them the devastating news. It matters to the parents who are told there is nothing else they can do for their baby. Metro Detroit Share matters because we operate with one simple principle. Every new life, no matter how fragile or brief, forever changes the world. And it all started with one beautiful baby named Brooke Green, March 15, 2005.
Angie, this is a difficult topic and a lot to digest after watching that. How in the world do you find time to be a full-time executive, sit on city council, and run a charity of this magnitude? Because this just isn't any little charity.
Mickey Turchek, I referenced earlier, had said in high school, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. That stuck with me. My phone is in my hand all the time because my calendar's in there, so I calendar everything, reminders, and honestly, you just do it. If there's a family that calls and they need support or they need a box dropped off, one of the projects we do, then I either do it or I find someone to do it. I use social media a lot to put word out. I need this done. I need this done. Have a great group of people who support our charity that you just have to delegate. You have to say, hey, I need help with this, and you just do it.
Should we start calling you Wonder Woman?
No. Just good calendar management.
I hear you.
Good motivation, I think, or something.
This
Coffee.
Okay.
That's what.
All right.
That's the
Okay.
key. Coffee.
It must be tremendously fulfilling. You feel that
I
on a
do.
constant basis?
I do.
Okay.
And I think that with Brooke that would be here, I think that parenting another child in our house, if we had another, would take time. And my time that I spend on Metro Detroit Share is kind of her time.
Wow, that's fantastic. If you've heard it, if I've heard it once, okay, I've heard it 1,000 times. Losing a child is a devastating experience that a parent can never really get over. You had your own experience with this issue. You pretty laid it out in front of the Rotary pretty well. Your charity has supported thousands of people who have had their own experiences. Are there common threads that you see constantly? Are there a handful that it's like boom, 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 and boom?
Common threads with like the experience.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I think common threads with loss and loss like this are lack of support and understanding sometimes from the community. I actually shared something on my social media today that just said, someone has a loss, just don't do the platitudes of this was God's plan, this was this, just tell them you're sorry, and give them room to grieve. Because that's what they need. They need the ability to grieve. And the other is finding support in people with shared experiences. And that was really the foundation of our group, was just connecting people who had shared experiences. I've lost a parent, I've lost a grandparent, I've lost friends. It's different. Loss is loss and it's hard, but losing a child, finding those connections with people who have that experience is, I would say, almost crucial to healing.
Gotcha.
Yes.
I hear you. Do you ever get over it?
No, you don't get over it. I think you adjust and you incorporate into your life. I decided to start a nonprofit, and not everybody does that, of course, but people find their ways of incorporating their child into their life however they see fit. If it's celebrating their birthday, if it's celebrating doing something special for someone else, but you never get over it. Like I said, you learn to live with it.
This is a question I've thought about, and I didn't put it on the script, and I'm going to throw it. It's a little awkward, but follow me. When parents talk about losing a child, okay, is there a difference between, a child, all right, an 8-year-old, okay, that you lose, or 9-year-old or whatever, and you've developed a certain relationship with that child, okay, and losing a child that you never really got to have a relationship with? Is there, you know what I'm talking?
I do know what you're
Yeah.
talking about, because we deal with a similar question with just pregnancy loss in general.
Right.
So somebody might have an early miscarriage loss versus a full-term loss. So I have both.
Okay.
But a lot of times I might be talking to a parent who had an early loss, and they'll say, well, yours is so much worse. And I always say, there's nothing worse. It's grief, and it's how you view your loss. It's different. Like, losses are different, and in that when we've had people call maybe that has an older child loss, I find groups like Compassionate Friends that deals more specific with that kind of loss, because it's just different. I don't think it's worse. I don't think it's better, because when you lose a child in infancy or in pregnancy, you're losing that time,
Correct.
you know, and those hopes and dreams where you. It's hard because I don't.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll
it's
just leave
hard.
it as it's different.
Yeah, gotcha.
It's a different kind of loss. But I always get where you just don't compare losses. It's grieving your loss and dealing with it and learning to cope and learning to move forward. I don't want to say move on, but move forward, I think, is a better term.
When it comes to Metro Detroit share, is there something that is more important than other things? Is there a top 3 things when you say, this is what I really need to make this charity go? Are there like 3 things that are key?
That I need?
Yeah.
Money.
Okay, money is key. Okay, money is the most important thing, probably.
Money and awareness, right?
Okay,
so when we
alrighty.
talk about, and volunteers, so that's
Okay.
3, yeah. Money, because obviously with everything we do, money is, we need it to do the programs. Volunteers we need, because again, we serve the whole state. So sometimes I need stuff to go to Tawas or something.
Right.
So I need people to get it there. And awareness, because, I mean,
Well, without awareness, you're not
yes,
going anywhere,
yes.
right? Yeah.
And
exactly.
awareness is what gets the information to the families.
Right.
So they know we exist.
Understood. As we wind down this interview, let's roll back to your role on council. You list your priorities as fiscally sound a budget, public safety, infrastructure improvements, parks and rec. Of all those things are doable. Public safety is a sticky wicket right now, and applicants aren't really beating down the doors. You're an HR person. You also sit on city council. What can we do?
Well, one is finding ways to keep who we have,
Okay,
right?
okay.
And then attracting new talent. So you need to look at comparables. You need to look at, right, what are other communities doing?
Right.
Maybe the younger individuals, right? How do you get people out in high school and maybe college? How do you get them to be interested in it? Unfortunately, I think the sentiment towards police right now is unfortunate.
Yeah, and that's a national problem.
It is.
Yeah.
It is, and the disrespect for officers and what they do is definitely a challenge. I think groups like, I know, Humanizing the Badges, and I'm actually going to meet with Mr. Edwards at some point and hope to just kind of learn more about what they do, and hopefully organizations like that can change the sentiment. I think the recent sledding race in Woodhaven, I think if there's more items like that to get the community behind police a little bit more would be great. But then, and at the end of the day, you got to have good pay and benefits, right, for people that want to do the job.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's
Absolutely.
key for sure.
Yeah, and that's a tough balance, because, like you say, it always goes to money.
It
and if
does.
you've got this pot to spend, how do you spend it well? And it's a tough balance. It just
It is,
isn't easy.
because there's a lot of departments, and everyone's important, right? I mean, our fires important, our DPW, Parks and Rec, city staff. I mean, everybody's important to manage the city.
I hear you.
Yes.
I hear you. Anyone who campaigns for office receives a never-ending stream of advice. Okay. What were some of the best tips you received from residents when you were campaigning?
I think one, and not necessarily in campaigning, but one of my most trusted mentors, I will say, was when making decisions, what's in the best interest of residents. Right? That's at the end of the day, when you're making any decision, because there's tough ones you have to make, is what's in the best interest of taxpayers as a whole, right? Not a certain segment, just what's best there. Listening to people. You know, listening to, again, which we touched on earlier, but just listening to people's feedback,
Right.
and just serving the community the best way you can.
That's all you can do is give it your best effort.
For sure.
Change in administration. We have a new mayor, Tim Woolley. It's early, but takeaways from the transition of power, what are they?
Yeah, I'm happy so far. I think that Mayor Woolley has done a great job with trying to foster some relationships with council, and by being more transparent, you know, with items coming forward, and I think that's a great thing. I think it's a needed thing. But like you said, it's still very early. But so far, I've liked all the kind of, I don't want to say changes, but some of the changes that have been made, and again, the way he's trying to foster a relationship with council.
Yeah, it's kind of, there are more nuances and adjustments, there are massages in the process.
Yes.
Taylor School District, okay, and I know you're a proud grad of TC.
Yes.
Recently passed the bond that will improve the system across the board, build a brand new high school in a few years. Voters hadn't done that since 1969. Is that a game changer for our public schools?
I think so, and I hope so. I worked to advocate for the bond while I was out campaigning, because you have to start somewhere.
Right.
And my understanding is around 50% of our Taylor kids go elsewhere, whether it's charter, schools of choice, private. We didn't have that issue when we were growing up, right? You either went to public school or you went to private school.
Right.
Like, you went to public school in the city you lived in. I think that our school needs to be competitive, because parents have choice.
Right.
And when you're a parent making that decision, you're going to do what you think is best for your child. I hope that that's, with the new facility, changes in the curriculum, the Career Center, I think is, I hope it will be a game changer, because college isn't for everybody.
Right.
And I think having those opportunities for every person to find something that they can do that they enjoy and that they can make a living at will be huge. So I'm excited about it. I think it's just a start, right? I mean, it's the building, but you have a foundation to start from.
Well, there's no doubt, when you talk about the Career Center, there's no doubt that over the course of time, education has shifted such a heavy emphasis toward college.
Yes.
And standardized testing and all that stuff. And while there's nothing wrong with it, there's also nothing wrong with making a good career for yourself outside of college.
Absolutely.
You know, there's millions and millions of those people out there, and there are a lot of trade jobs available right now. They pay a lot of money.
They do, and they're needed too. That's the thing. There's a shortage of those as well. And
I hear you.
Why go in tens of thousands of dollars in debt when you could go do something you enjoy? I want to enjoy what I do for a job.
Right.
I enjoy what I do, so it doesn't make it seem so much like work.
I hear you. I hear you. Angie, thanks for coming on. It's been really enlightening. I hope our audiences have enjoyed it as much as I have. Continued success on council with the Senior Alliance and with Metro Detroit Share. For Angie Winton, along with Joe Camilleri and Samantha Rickard behind the scenes, I'm Carl Zymak. Thanks for joining us on Up Close and Personal. We'll see you next time when we feature another one of Taylor's leaders.